Mr. Johnson, it is 1:15. Can you confirm if we have all council members present?
We do not. We are missing a few, actually.
Okay. We'll give it another 2 minutes and see if we have better luck. So I know sometimes it's amazing how a minute can make a difference.
Yes.
It can be different depending on our watches and our phones.
I'll take that minute to go get coffee in the kitchen here. Be
Okay.
right back.
Okay.
Hey, Will, do we have people signed up for public forum?
Yes, we do.
Oh, good. How many?
We have 8 that are signed up for the 2 o'clock public forum so far.
Okay. Public forum was really good yesterday.
Mhm.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Mr. Johnson, do we have our council members present now?
I believe we're still missing 2 members, Councilman Roberto and Testerman.
Okay.
Will, you guys are doing a great job of running Zoom, I might say. Besides some minor little details, it's going very smoothly, very smoothly.
I appreciate that. It's been an adventure.
Well, I can easily say I couldn't have done it.
Will and I were just talking the other day about how we wish this would last forever.
Actually, I said just the opposite.
I was being really sarcastic. Just to get a rise out of you, Will.
It doesn't take much these days. I've texted Councilman Roberto. He's the only one we're missing.
Okay, thank you. And Mr. Swanson, thank you for joining us. I think we have everyone here from council. So I'm going to go ahead and move forward with the law department. Mr. Swanson, I will turn it over to you.
Charles, you're muted.
Thank you very much, Vice Mayor. I appreciate the opportunity to appear before council and answer any questions you may have about the operation of the law department. We are obviously proud to represent the city on behalf of the mayor and the administration. We have, in the law department, we have 7 really good lawyers plus myself, and we do a good deal of work with the lawyers that we have. As an example, on a yearly basis, we typically handle over 350 contracts per year, twice that in terms of resolutions and ordinances. We afford legal advice to every single department in the city, as well as to a number of commissions and departments and things of that nature. We handle, at any given moment, we've got 50 to 60 open litigation cases that we're handling on behalf of the city. We help collect taxes. We handle pretty much all of the legal responsibilities for the city, except those rare situations where we have to go outside for counsel in some circumstances where that becomes necessary. And the budget that we have presented to you is simply a continuation budget. Nothing really new or exciting, sadly, for the law department this year. We look forward to providing services to the city. Be glad to address any questions you may have. By the way, I have here my deputy law director, Ron Mills, who's with us, and our office manager, Amanda Messer, who's somewhere on here. I don't see her on my screen, but she's here somewhere. In case you actually have a real question that needs to be answered, I can defer to one of these folks who know what they're doing.
Okay. Have any questions for the law department? Comments? Okay.
Thank you guys for what you guys do for us.
Thank you.
Okay. All right. Having heard no questions, thank you very much, Mr. Swanson, for all
Thank
that
you.
you and your team do, and have a good afternoon.
Appreciate it. You too.
Next, we have municipal court. Do we have Judge Rawson on the line with us?
Hi, yes, the judge is here.
Thank you.
Our budget, but I'm gonna let Valerie Coleman, our esteemed city court clerk, municipal court administrator, I should say.
Okay. All right, Ms. Coleman, we'll let you go ahead and get started. Thank you.
We're very proud of our pictures of the courtroom. We want to show you those. We set everything up so we can be 6 feet apart from everybody and do all the right things, but she's going to tell you about it.
All right, great. Thank you.
Okay, hello, everyone. Do I advance the slides, Will? I'm sorry, haven't done this before.
No, if you'll please just prompt me, I'll take care of it.
Okay, ready to go. Next slide. This is just sort of a preview. I just want everybody to know what we have been doing during the pandemic as we have been working. Because we had to reset so many cases, we mailed out approximately 3,000 reset letters to citizens that had court dates so that they would not have to come up to the building and know that their case had been reset, and giving them information and guidance on what they would need to do if they wanted to go ahead and pay it, or if they wanted to come to court at a later date. Next slide, please. This, I wanted everyone to see how we have set up the courtroom for our social distancing. We have every space is 6 feet apart, no matter where you're sitting. We have spaces for attorneys, witnesses, and they're all CDC compliant. And with us having a larger courtroom, the way it is right now, we can accommodate about 28 people, even though right now we are still doing 10, not including court staff. You can go to the next picture, please. And this just shows our spacing for anyone that has to come before Judge Rawson, where it's clearly marked where the defendants are 6 feet from the bench, the officer, witnesses. So everything is spaced according to plan. Next slide, please. And that's just a different view where you can see how we have clearly marked. And this is just things that we purchased, red tape from the store, and the blue tape, you know, things that we got to set this up so we could be in compliance. And the next slide, please. And that's just to show that Judge Rawson is in compliance. He is wearing his mask when he's on the bench. You can go ahead to the next slide. And this just shows how we've set up the hallways, places for people to stand. And you can go ahead to the next slide as well. And so we just want everybody, when they come in, to where they can see, you know, it's clearly marked where they stand to wait their turn to be seen by someone sitting at our court counter, or until it's time for them to go into the courtroom. And the next slide. Okay, so now this is actually some of our budget information. Parking tickets that we have received a total of 52,441 parking tickets from July 2019 to date. In April of this year, we received 119 and only 3 in May. And I put this up here to show you the difference, because the monthly average is usually about 6,000 a month. So as you can see, parking tickets are down, and of course we all understand why they are down at this time. So of course that does affect our budget as well. As far as our citations go, this fiscal year so far, we have a total of 7,573. 16,000, almost 16,900 came from KPD, another almost 700 from UTPD. So that's 20% less tickets issued during the pandemic, but since last fiscal year, altogether, we're about 50% down in citations being issued. During the time that court was not in session, we still had ways for people to come and pay their tickets without them having to come into the building. If you'll go to the next slide, please. We of course accept cash. You can pay online. We accept MasterCard or Visa. Payments can be made in person. They can mail them in. And we actually have a drop box at the front of the building. So what we did was we have envelopes that when someone came up to the building, when no one was being let in, then we had made up envelopes to where all they had to do was fill it out, put their money in it, and they put it in a drop box in the front of the building. And you can go to the next slide, please. And this just shows some of my employees where the drop box is. The guy there in the black shows how people put it in. And the lady there shows how we've got a key and it's locked, and how we get the payments out. So during the time that although our office was open and court wasn't in session, we would have to go out there about 3 times a day to get the money out of that box. And of course we had KPD would come out, an officer would come out with us, and we do, appreciate that. The next slide, please. And this is something that one of our accomplishments that we're really very proud of. July 19th, Tennessee Department of Homeland and Safety approved a formal payment plan program for people to be able to get their license reinstated. So since that time, we have helped 500 people get a valid driver's license. So there's 500 more people that did not have a license, were unable to drive to work or doctor's appointments or whatever, that now have a valid driver's license because we were able to set them up on the formal payment plan. Our court was also the first in the state to actually get the paperwork together. Once the state allowed it, we created the forms, created our process. And since that time, we've even met with Knox County to help them with their process, and so they could see our forms and how we were doing it. So we're very proud of that fact as well. If you go to the next slide, this is just my amazing staff and all of us that work in city court. And that's all we have. And if there's any questions or comments, Judge is still here. We'll be more than glad to answer them.
Okay. You have any questions or comments?
Yes, Ms. Coleman, how are you doing? Good to see you.
Hi,
and
thank you.
good, looking well. Just a general question. Of course, you're going to be moving to some new operations. Can you talk a little bit about the time frame and the transition? Is it going to be done in stages, or just kind of give us a little overview of this impending move?
From what we've been told, when the time comes, then it will be done, as far as our part, would have to be done in stages to get what we need set up and put in place. We're hoping that we would be able to at least have some function still in the safety building until everything is set up at the new location, is what we're hoping for. In the meantime, if not, then, we will continue to take payments over the phone and send out another group of resale letters if we have to, but just to continue to keep the public informed of what they need to do as we find out what we will be doing.
Okay, good answer. Thank you.
Okay, if no other questions, thank you, Ms. Coleman. Thank you, Judge Ross, and thank you, your staff, for all that you guys do. You all have
I
a good
just-
afternoon. Oh, you have
I
a
just
question?
wanted to really quickly tell you how impressive your markings and your setup are for distancing. Very impressive.
Well, thank you very much. The staff worked hard on it and we got it done. So I appreciate that. Thank you so
Yes,
much.
Thank you very much. I appreciate you guys.
Thank you. Have a good day.
Thank you.
Okay. So next on our agenda is legislative, and that is city council, which includes city council members. I'm going to ask Mr. Johnson if he'll go over our section quickly for us, or briefly for us, and then we'll take any questions.
Yeah, thank you, Vice Mayor. So as council knows, your council office staff provide administrative and clerical support to city council. That includes myself, Angela Hopper, the assistant city recorder, and Savannah Maupin, the internal auditor. And we also provide support to the beer board, the audit committee, the golf course committee, and the public property naming committee. We also provide record keeping services for the city. As far as our budget's concerned, it's pretty basic this year. Increases for raises, 2.5% raises for the three of us in this office. And then in this coming fiscal year will be a full year where council is receiving the raise that they received in December. So that accounts for part of that increase. Other expenses increased were a built-in contractual increase in the external audit contract for, it escapes me the name of the external auditor at the moment, but Ms. Maupin is on the line if anybody has a question about that. And then there was a contractual increase in our council attorney, Mr. Frost's compensation. So that is included in our budget. We also have the beer fund, which is primarily used to pay for hearing officers for suspension revocation hearings that come before the beer board. And then there's the 202 fund as well. That's also overseen, of course, by city council. So if there are any questions about your budget for your council, your council office. Yeah,
I don't
Councilman
really have a
Roberto.
question, Will. Just want to thank you and Angela and Savannah for all the work you do. I know how often, we might ask you to, help us with some research or to put something together very quickly, and you all always do it. And you're just easy to get in touch with, and just want to thank you for all those times you've helped all of us out. So that's the only comment I have. Thank you.
Thank you, Andrew. We appreciate that.
Any other questions or comments? Okay, and Lauren, did you?
No,
Okay. And I also want to echo Councilmember Roberto's note of gratitude. We certainly appreciate all that you all do and your flexibility, especially with the staffing in the office that you're doing as we go through this pandemic, and your flexibility. With that said, that concludes our budget hearings, our items on our agenda. Council, if you like, we can break until and come back about 5 minutes till 2, if you like.
We
Okay.
do have 3 persons who have signed up to speak already in the pool. If you want to get through some of them now and maybe get out earlier.
Okay. Council members, what's your pleasure? We want to proceed?
Sounds good to
Okay.
me.
Yes, if
All
they're
right,
ready, I am.
Okay. Yeah, and then that way they don't have to continue to wait till 2 o'clock. So that will be fine. Mr. Johnson, I'll go ahead and let you proceed with those. I do want to go ahead and give our disclaimer that we shared yesterday, that we appreciate so very much our constituents across the city signing up to speak at public forum and sharing your opinions and your thoughts with us regarding the budget that we are looking at and that we will be charged with approving. I would like to ask that everyone would please be respectful with your comments and not have any personal attacks or profanity when you are talking to council. In the event that you do, I am going to ask Mr. Johnson to please mute anyone that uses profanity on the line. Again, we appreciate you dialing in to talk to us. Mr. Johnson.
Yes, our first speaker who is present will be Mr. Ben Allen. Mr. Allen, I'm going to enable you to speak. If you'll please give us your name and address for the record, and you'll have up to 5 minutes to speak.
Thanks, everybody. Hey, everyone. My name is Ben Allen. I'm at 2412 Lawson Avenue. I organize for climate justice with the Tennessee Valley Energy Democracy Movement. I'm a science advocate. I organized the March for Science in Knoxville, and I'm an environmental systems biologist and contractor at Oak Ridge National Laboratory. And of course, my views are my own and do not represent those of my employer or affiliates. Yeah, I just wanted to speak to you all today regarding the city's priorities for climate and environment. And I was happy to see that Mayor Concanon was proposing $1.2 million to address the stormwaters in the city. You know, as somebody who's had to clean out their basement a few times, I really appreciate you trying to get that in control. But I just want to say that as a scientist, I feel obligated to say that we really have to be investing more to address climate in our city and in our environmental issues, especially if we want to meet those goals for 80% reduction of CO2 by the city by 2050. And I just didn't see much reflected in the budget about how that was going to happen. And I was excited to see that the mayor was putting together the Climate Council, but I was disappointed that despite us being the home of two world-class research institutions, between UT and obviously Oak Ridge is in Oak Ridge, but most of the scientists live in Knoxville, I should say. I was disappointed to not see any scientists sitting on that Climate Council. It just seems like we've got people from real estate and we've got, some of our local advocates, but it just seems like we're not we don't have people on there that are going to be able to understand how we're taking, how we're contributing to taking carbon dioxide out of the atmosphere and reduce nitrogen in our, water systems and things like that. So I asked that the mayor and the city council consider ways that they can invest in supporting renewable energy goals and carbon emissions decreases in the city. And I just would also request that you all think about how to creatively increase the say that public people have in their power system here. You know, in Memphis, citizens are able to elect board members to the MLGW, and it's unique in the city in that citizens actually have a say in who runs their local power company. So I would like to ask the board to consider, or the city council to consider ways that they can legislate to support citizens having the ability to elect officials to KUB and their local power companies. So with that, I will cede the rest of my time, and thank you for letting me talk to you all today.
Thank you, Mr. Allen. The next we have will be Jade Cunningham.
Hi
Ms.
there.
Cunningham, Ms. Cunningham, if you'll please give us your name and address, and you have up to 5 minutes.
Absolutely. My name is Jade Cunningham. It's 2417 Washington Avenue. I'm with a group called Knoxville Service Industry United. We were founded within the COVID-19 pandemic, specifically to provide an organized voice for Knoxville and surrounding area restaurant workers. A lot that I have on my plate is more COVID-19 related, but I do really hope that with your expertise as a council, you can kind of help me figure out how we can translate that after this pandemic. So something that we found out as we organized is that overwhelmingly our restaurant community during this pandemic has not felt heard or recognized or cared for. And my question there is almost, is that a feeling that's being echoed throughout low-income communities and workers here in Knoxville? We have authored and sent a letter of discovery to local and state government asking to give us information on how they're ensuring and enforcing safety guidelines, be it OSHA, federal, state, or local, and how we're going to provide guaranteed safety plans for our restaurant workers here in Knoxville. We know that the Knoxville Health Department has been tasked with carrying out these guidelines, but I think our real question here is the problem that they maybe don't have the resources to do so. We're seeing all over town that these guidelines are not being enforced and not followed. And the question there is it because we haven't given our health department the resources to do so? And if that's not the question, then what is the answer? If they have the resources, why aren't we enforcing or following these guidelines to keep our restaurant workers safe, as they're a huge portion of our low-income workers here in Knoxville? We've completely stopped all inspections when, you know, arguably they're the most needed right now. And so how do we do better for our low-income workers here in Knoxville, specifically from my group, our restaurant workers? Something we have overwhelmingly discussed as a group is these unsafe conditions. Every single day I'm receiving personal messages from folks who feel unsafe in their workplace, who fear for what should happen to their families if they were to get sick. So I think moving forward as a group, a big question that we have is how can we budget in better healthcare and more access to healthcare and social services for all low-income workers throughout Knoxville, as well as their families in the wake of COVID-19, but also just in general. You know, our group is right now co-authoring a letter to KUB to have a sit down for what happens when these 3-4 months of utility bills no longer have that stop on suspensions and folks are faced with $1,200 of utility bills. Is there a way that as a council we can look at that and help provide for families that are struggling right now? I am certainly not an expert, and this is definitely not my realm, but I think my real question is how can we reach across the table to work together to do so? A big thing that continues to come up in what we're doing is PPE. When you've got a continued struggle for medical equipment, for masks, for gloves, for things that should feel simple, but you've also got small businesses that are having a hard time even keeping the doors open. How do we as a city better represent those small businesses and help them not fight yet another uphill battle by perhaps moving forward with a plan for PPE provided to everyone? And then I think, is another huge point for us, affordable housing has been brought up many times to your council, but as a group that is a significant low income worker group, how can we ensure that in the wake of this pandemic, folks are having access to affordable housing and more care for their families? Again, no expert here on any of these things, but I wanted to represent my group and speak with you folks in these concerns that are currently happening with a group of almost 1,000 people here in Knoxville. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, Ms. Cunningham. The next person we have will be Ms. Constance Every. Ms. Every, I will allow you to speak if you'll please give us your name and address, and you have up to 5 minutes.
Unmute myself. Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
All right, my name is Constance Every. My address is 301 North Charlie Drive. It's already been said pretty much the last 2 days straight, which is that we need the budget to support social services and human life. We don't need to continue to over budget our police department and militarization. We don't need to make any more investments into buying public property for developers or developments. And we don't need to keep putting investments into animals over humans. The catch is we need the resources to go to the people, plain and simple. Here's an excellent opportunity for you all, council, to show me something, literally. I don't know about everybody else in the city, but I've been dying for you all to show me your ability to be great. Here's your opportunity to do that. You have a real chance to take the money and put it towards social services. Public housing, continue to be an issue. Transportation, continue to be an issue. Education, youth enrichment, continue to be an issue. We need resources for our single moms, single parent, and elderly homes who pick up these children to help assist and keep them out of our DCS and our other public systems for children. We need to put the money where it really needs to go. And we don't need to keep putting it in places that we don't. If you want to do something with the police budget, then the budget should be spent for them should be number one, police reform, cultural and diversity training, and retention of minority personnel. That's what the police budget really needs right now if you want to spend money over there for them. But they don't need any more guns. They don't need more tanks. They don't need any more bomb equipment. They don't need any more cop cars. They don't need more promotion cars. They don't need any of these things anymore. And if you want to give raises to somebody or create somewhere where we need more jobs, do it in your own administration. We need more people that help you guys out. And if you want to give a raise, give raises to those people who have been pushed to do the work with like half of their staff and other necessities they have. The people that print out those beautiful agendas for y'all on those pretty papers. Pay those.
Ms. Every, you've
Wants to show what we already know, which is that they don't care about the lives of the people here, and they're not concerned with the greater good of us all, and they're not concerned with continuing to try to make things better for those who are really suffering, that was suffering before the pandemic hit. Then continue how you're doing, because that's how you already have shown us. So I want you all to show me something different. Show me you care about our public. Show me you really consider those who are in the greatest need. Show me that you do give a concern about women and their children. Show me that you really care about entrepreneurship and development in areas that have been robbed of that. Put the money back into Burlington. It's no secret. Burlington has been robbed of their business district for years now. Put it back. Put more money into the Chain Center, who has shown that they have an effectiveness in crime drive down. Put the money into park and recs. We need more green spaces, and not for people to play golf on, but for our children to run around and play in parks on. Put the money where it needs to go. Impress me, council, for real, like for real, impress me and show me you can actually do the right thing. Or as I said before, continue your trend that we know that you do, which is you don't normally do the right thing. So show me something, prove me wrong. Actually have the ability to say that Constance Every, we proved you wrong. We are gonna do the right thing and we do care about our people. Show me that. And if you do that, then you guess what? I'll close my mouth. You actually won't have to deal with my mouth no more. And if you don't, then you already know the routine. You'll be dealing with my mouth until the day you walk out that door. So that's all I have to say. We already said it numerous times over and over again. People services over everything else. The people need help. Put the money to the people, plain and simple. Thank you.
Vice Mayor, that's the last person present who was in the pool. We have 5 others who've signed up, but they're not here yet.
Okay. With that said, we'll go ahead, council, and take a brief 10-minute break and come back for the 2 o'clock remainder of our public forum. And thank you to all who've already spoken. Okay, see you in 10. Mr. Johnson, can you confirm that all council members are back on?
I believe we are.
Okay, well, we'll go ahead and start with public forum. Do we have speakers already online?
We have 2 more that have joined.
Okay, so for the 2 speakers, if you will, we thank you for signing up to speak to council today. What I would do is I would ask if you would please, when you are speaking to council, if you would refrain from any profanity and personal attacks on council members. In the event that you do, I will ask Mr. Johnson you will be muted. Again, we do thank you for taking the time to speak with us today. Mr. Johnson, I'll go ahead and turn it over to you. Thank you.
Yes, our next speaker will be Summer Awad. I will enable you to speak. You have up to 5 minutes to speak. If you give us your name and address, please.
Hi, my name is Summer Awad. I'm a lifelong Knoxville resident and I work as a case manager for Bridge Refugee Services. I wanted to speak today to uplift some of the concerns of the refugee community as they relate to budget priorities.
Yeah,
Yes.
Ms. Awad, will you please give us your address?
I live at 1212 Wallingford Road.
Thank you.
I would like to focus on affordable housing as well as cultural competency and language access in city services. As you may know, our agency is tasked with resettling newly arrived refugees to the Knoxville area, which includes securing and furnishing housing for refugees prior to their arrival. The majority of our clients come from refugee camps with no resources or assets to their name. They arrive with nothing. And although most of them become employed within the first 90 days of their arrival, they're often working low-wage jobs due to limited English abilities. The need for affordable housing for this population is critical. We must place refugees in housing that they'll continue to be able to afford upon their employment. Our clients often arrive in large family units with small children, and finding safe, affordable housing for these clients has increasingly become a challenge. This is not a problem unique to Knoxville, but it is reflective of a nationwide housing crisis. Unfortunately, we've learned from other resettlement agencies what can happen if a city allows its housing crisis to get out of control. A resettlement agency in Nashville was forced to close after it determined that it could no longer find affordable housing to place clients in. So this shows how the housing crisis in Knoxville can have ripples internationally. A family in a refugee camp in Uganda waiting for a home in Tennessee might be delayed or barred from coming to safety because of the lack of resources here. My father is an immigrant who made his home here in Knoxville 34 years ago as Tennessee Volunteers and the home of the immigrant-owned nicest place in America at Yassine's Falafel House. We have many elements of a welcoming city, but if we do not invest in affordable housing, we will not be a welcoming city for those with fewer means, including immigrants and refugees in search of a better life. It's an often quoted statistic that there are more empty buildings in this country than there are people without housing, and I believe that the same could be said for our city. We need a budget that focuses on solving our homelessness crisis, mitigating gentrification, and maintaining the affordability of our city. A second concern that I believe can be impacted by the city budget is the insufficiency of cultural competency and language access training among the Knoxville Police Department. As you all know, KPD is slated to receive the largest share of the city budget and enjoys the largest staff of any city unit. Although KPD continues to receive the most resources for staffing and training, the department's cultural competency and compliance with Title VI LEP or Limited English Proficiency Policy is sorely lacking. Nearly every time one of my clients has an encounter with the police, I find that proper interpretation services were not used at the call and that in some cases the call is mishandled as a result. One client with severe intellectual and developmental disabilities was arrested when an interpreter was not used to correctly ascertain their situation. Although KPD has an LEP policy in writing and all officers have access to a language line, officers have often reported to me that they used minor children or friends as interpreters when they arrive at the scene. This is inappropriate and dangerous as the English proficiency of the de facto interpreters may be lacking or their involvement may create a conflict of interest. It's vital that officers be familiar with the nationalities and language groups present in our communities so that they can secure the proper interpretation. Officers often assume that any African client speaks Swahili when in reality our Congolese clients alone speak more than 10 different languages. Officers need training not only in basic cultural competency, but in the specificities of Knoxville-based refugee populations. This will create more trust between refugee communities, refugee agencies, and police, and result in a safer community for all of us. And on the same note, I would like to echo the letter from Winona Russ regarding the need to empower and strengthen Park with additional resources. Resourcing the police is not just about additional bodies on the force, but it's about oversight, accountability, training, and community relations.
So Wad, you have 1 minute left.
Okay. By funding cultural competency and language access training, filling some of the staff positions with social workers rather than officers who can de-escalate and respond to mental health crises, and strengthening the role of Park, we can work toward better police community relations and create a safer community for us all. And so I hope that as you look at this budget and look to amend and improve it, that you'll consider our refugee neighbors and all poor and marginalized communities by prioritizing housing and social services. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Awad. The next person on the list is Donna Maxwell. There is someone who's here. It's just a number, so I don't know that it's you. If that is Mrs. Maxwell, if you'll please raise your hand. If not, we will move on to the next speaker and come back to you. Mr. Watson, Mr. Brady Watson is next. Mr. Watson, I'll enable you to speak. If you'll please give us your name and address, and you'll have up to 5 minutes to speak.
Great. Thank you so much, Mr. Johnson. I really appreciate it. As you said, my name is Brady Watson. I live at 229 Haywood Avenue. I'm currently the Civic Engagement Coordinator with the Southern Alliance for Clean Energy. I've gotten to know and met many of you through my work previously on a mayoral campaign. So it's good to see you all. But I wanted to first start out by thanking American Cannon and you, City Council, for making progress toward meeting our community's carbon reduction goals, and with the recent formation of the Mayor's Climate Council, which SACE is excited to be a part of. Like many Knoxvillians, I would like to see more clean energy, affordable utility bills, and more clean electric transportation in Knoxville. So as you go through this budget process, please continue to support meeting our climate goals through funding in the city budget with clean energy initiatives like the Sustainable Innovation Fund, which will help increase the energy efficiency of city-owned buildings undergoing renovations, and energy efficiency programs for our citizens as well. I appreciate all that you're doing to help our city take positive steps forward to meet our carbon reduction goals, and look forward to seeing even more progress to create a greener and cleaner and more equitable Knoxville for all. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mr. Watson. The next speaker on the list who's present is Imani Mifalme. Ms. Mifalme, I will enable you to speak. If you'll please give us your name and address, and you have up to 5 minutes.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay. Imani Mifalme, 9348 Ridges Meadow Lane. I'm here today on behalf of Community Defense of East Tennessee. We're a grassroots organization that practices participatory defense. That's an organizing model where we support families and their loved ones who are navigating through the criminal and justice system. We work directly with families that go through the system within Knoxville City and County, across East Tennessee and the nation. I'm here today to talk about the budgeting and funding of the police. I'd like to give you alternatives of what you could do with that funding. You could invest in preventative measures that include anti-crime models, violence interrupters, community-based sexual assault centers. You can invest in mental health, rehabilitation, and habilitation. A study showed you can incarcerate one person for a year. You could also, with that same money, send 9 adults to drug treatment. You can incarcerate one youth for a year, or you can send 789 children to space camp, or sponsor 155 youth jobs. With $100 million, you could fund 50 youth centers, 500 intervention workers, and 25,000 youth jobs. So think about that amount that you gave to the police. You can also invest in restorative justice models and training That is investing in your community. You can invest in unarmed mediation and intervention teams that are made up from people directly from those neighborhoods. You can also invest in community patrol. And for those who are listening, please look into community patrol to begin to protect yourself against the police. You can also invest in direct democracy at the community level, which gives the community the tools and the training they need to engage each other. Let me continue to the jail conditions. If I'm not mistaken, funding was given for COVID. Although the jail is a county, KPD contributes vastly to that population, and the people incarcerated are both from the city and the county. We've been told that there is inadequate cleaning supplies. People are having to use sanitary pads and coffee filters to clean. They are also not receiving testing. This is a gross negligence on everyone in leadership in county and the city. People who are incarcerated have a constitutional right not to undergo cruel and unusual punishment, and that includes the jail conditions. The people who voted you in office have loved ones who are incarcerated. Your silence in the face of this injustice is complicity and this oppression. I want to ask you, what message are we sending to the people by continuing to fund the police? Are we rewarding the findings of the misconduct investigation of the KPD? Do we have no regard for the people of Knoxville who view the police as a threat as we ride around in tanks? And do we have no respect for the privacy of people when you sign on to an MOU that is giving the police access to people's protected health information, as you did in April? Lastly, I want to say, don't use this public forum as a check mark on a box to say, yes, we heard the community out. Your next agenda item should be to set up a meeting with community members and grassroots organizations and give them a seat at the table to collectively come up with a solution that works for the community. Because right now what you're saying is that we don't believe in you, we don't want to train you, and we don't want to empower you. We want to continue to invest in the people and the systems that violate our civil liberties and want power over us.
You have 1
The
minute
answer
left.
is going to come from the community. And until you accept that and implement it, there will be little to no progress. Remember the community who elected you, people over police and prisons. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Mafalme. Okay, council, the only other person who's not spoken who's in the pool, I don't know who it is. I'm going to enable them to speak for them to identify themselves, and hopefully there's somebody who's on the list. I've enabled you to speak. The only thing I have to identify you is the number 519-587. If you'll unmute yourself and you can identify yourself. I don't know who that is and they're not responding. We only have one other person or two other persons signed up, Donna Maxwell and Rick Roach. They're not present. I don't know how.
So, Mr. Johnson, what is the process when a person signs up to speak at public forum? What information do they provide to you?
So in these times, we're generally asking for their address. We don't always get that, their email address, so that we can send them the invitation. And if they intend to phone into the meeting, we ask for their phone number.
Do you have that phone number registered to
Nobody
speak?
indicated that they were going to be phoning in. So we sent emails to those individuals.
Okay. Okay, so council would, at this point, we know that we have 2 additional people signed up to speak. Do we want to maybe allow 10 minutes to see if those 2 individuals will phone in or to dial into the Zoom meeting? because, correct me if I'm wrong, Mr. Johnson, you did email them the invitation with the link, correct?
We did, yes.
Okay.
I mean,
Counsel,
I
I'd
think
like-
going,
like
Vice
to
Mayor
get your-
McKenzie, I think
Yes.
going until 2:25 or 2:30 is acceptable. I mean, obviously, if other folks don't want to or can't, that's fine, but I'm fine to stay and see if somebody dials in.
I agree.
Yes, I'm willing to do that. And then kind of the fallback, Will, if you could, if they don't show up, if you could just email them and tell them that they'll have another opportunity on Tuesday, that would give them an opportunity to speak.
Yes, we can do that.
And if
Will,
anyone-
what time were, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Oh, go right ahead.
I was just gonna ask, Will, what time did you tell them public forum was?
It was announced at 2 o'clock.
Okay, thank you.
That might confuse some because yesterday's was at 5 and today's was at 2. So
Right.
I could understand how that might confuse somebody.
But in the email, I'm sure you let them know.
It was in the email. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, let's give them a few more minutes, but
Yeah.
then just email them and tell them to sign up for Tuesday if they miss this opportunity. I want to hear them. It's just, we're kind of operating in the dark here, so we're trying to give some leeway. And anyway.
Okay. Thank you. Go on mute till we hear from Mr. Johnson that someone else is dialed in. If anyone knows any of the two individuals, if you will, you can feel free to text them or contact them to let them know that we are in public forum now. We're waiting for them. Thank you. Everybody could please go on mute. Unless you want us to hear you moving around or doing stuff while you're waiting.
Hey, folks, I just got a message from Donna that she needs the link for the call. Can we resend that?
Yes, I was just about to email her.
Looks like Mr. Roach is on the call.
Yes, he is. Okay.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, Mr. Roach, we can hear you. And if you'd like to give us your name and address, you'll have up to 5 minutes to speak.
Thank you. Rick Roach, 2404 Victoria Avenue. Thank you all for showing patience. Two things. The first thing is I want to congratulate you all for taking up the issue of the housing situation in Knoxville and considering it as you develop the budget. The CRA is a very important element in terms of a blueprint for how Knoxville can help bring about equity in the housing situation. And with all the aforementioned economic situations, and that we know that we're in serious trouble, and this Corona situation has not helped at all. And you're going to have to start thinking outside the box in terms of how to bring about housing equity. One of the models I would urge you all to consider is the concept of a community land trust, and where there, this everything that I've seen about that particular model says that housing costs would be reduced. Neighborhoods would have more direct control over what their neighborhoods look like, what their communities look like. And the other thing is the financing arena and the relationship of Knoxville to financial institutions. I had brought this up before. I really want to urge you all to look hard and long at the relationships that have been maintained for decades that have really produced, at the end of the day, have produced housing inequity. Please just try your best to, think of other ways to bring about housing equity. The other thing is, with this past situation, with the database, from what I've seen, what I've experienced with all of that, I would just urge that there be a complete review of the police department. We can't do much with the sheriff's department directly, but I would urge you to first look at the leadership. That the whole database situation was an epic fail, and it should never happen. Basically, Chief Thomas needs to go, in my opinion. And I would urge the mayor and all of you to urge the mayor to relieve her of her duty. There's been too many situations that have gone on that show that there's a lack of connection to particularly Black community, Spanish-speaking community, the over-policing of particular neighborhoods in Knoxville, especially in East Knoxville and in Mechanicsville, Lonsdale, is apparent. The harassment of houseless people, it's apparent. So, maybe that's one place to start, but also, start thinking in terms of focusing on the least of these in Knoxville, bottom-up approach, stabilize those communities that have historically been discriminated against. And I think that will help make Knoxville a stronger, a more viable place to live. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Roach. And Ms. Maxwell is here with us now. Ms. Maxwell, if you'll please give us your name and address, and you'll have up to 5 minutes to speak.
Thank you. My name is Donna Maxwell. I live at 404 Maple Loop Road in Colonial Village in South Knoxville. And I just wanted to voice my support for Knoxville city workers as you put together a new budget. I understand that a 2.5% across the board pay raise is proposed for city workers. And I hope that the city council will consider a more equitable raise for the lowest paid employees. Their wages fall well below the state average. City employees who have families to support often have difficulty managing without a second job. I don't feel any full-time worker should have to work a second job to make ends meet. I understand that employees like police and firefighters work in harmful conditions, and I would not advocate taking anything away from those who work on the front lines. At some point, however, the city of Knoxville needs to address income inequality. We need to flatten the curve, so to speak, when it comes to compensating our public service professionals. Citizens like myself depend on, and I hope deeply appreciate, the services provided by sanitation workers and all those who work to keep the city's infrastructure intact. Now more than ever, these workers also work in harmful conditions. They're truly important to us during the pandemic. And as for the pandemic, I hope the City Council will revisit paid sick leave policies, paid time off that may have been sufficient in the past may not be in the future. My hope is that Knoxville City government will set an example to the private sector employers when it comes to income equality and a basic safety net for its employees. It will make us a stronger city in the long run. And I thank you for your time and for your leadership.
Thank you, Ms. Maxwell.
Thank you.
Vice Mayor, that is the conclusion of our list.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Johnson. Again, I want to thank everyone that signed up to speak at public forum today. Council, it has been a long 2 days, a lot of good information. I got a lot of good questions, comments, and dialogue. A couple of takeaways as well that we have had. Savannah is actually going to go back through. She did not take that information as we went along because I didn't ask her to take notes, but she's going to go back through the last 2 days and she's going to pull out some of the takeaways that we talked about and compile for us. So we will have that running list to stay fresh in our minds that we can follow back up with various departments, deputy chiefs, and the mayor with as well. If there are no other questions or comments, I'd like to just thank you guys again. And yes, Councilmember Parker, yes.
Just a quick comment. You know, at this point in our charter, it says that we as a council are able to make amendments to the budget. But it's difficult for us to do that, obviously, without some space in order to do that. And so one thing I wanted to propose at Tuesday's meeting, and I just wanted to give you all a heads up about it, is I would like for us to have a discussion on the budget on Tuesday, discussing any amendments we feel are needed based on these hearings, and then postpone the actual vote until our following city council meeting to give the public additional time to engage in that process. So I just wanted to give you all a heads up that that's something I hope that we're able to do, continue the discussion, but actually vote on the budget in a few weeks to give us a little bit more time to see if any amendments are needed.
Okay. Thank you, Councilmember Parker. I don't know if Mr. Frost is still on the line with us or not. I think that
I'm here.
Okay. Mr. Frost, would that be an amendment that would be motioned Tuesday for a vote?
Well, yes. I mean, you can, I mean, I guess right now, if you wanted to, you could have a proposal. All you could do right now is have an informal straw vote, straw poll, because this is not a meeting where something is being finally voted on like a city council meeting. Over the years, you know, sometimes people have wanted to see an amendment and they brought it up and they had a straw poll occur. And oftentimes that would give the proponent of the amendment an idea if an actual amendment at a meeting had a likelihood of succeeding. That does not have to be done now. I mean, Ms. Parker or any other member of council can put something on the table on Tuesday if they desire.
Councilwoman Fugit.
Thank you. So, Mr. Frost, it sounds like anybody if somebody wanted to change the date of the voting on the budget, they would have to propose that item come off the agenda or make a motion to postpone. I'm trying to figure out sort of the protocol to get at what Ms. Parker is after, because whether or not anybody proposes a change to the budget, can someone ask to delay the vote is the question.
Well, I mean, you can ask to delay the vote without even offering an amendment if you want. And that can happen for anything on the budget. I mean, anything on an agenda, not just not the budget, but council, the charter does not provide council line item authority. I'm just making up for instance here, if a member of council wanted to give $100,000 more towards sidewalks for sake of argument, and take that $100,000 for sidewalks and remove it out of the city paving program, the city council doesn't have the authority to line item that. Now, I don't pretend that if there was a will of the majority of council, I don't think any administration would not listen to that and try to figure out how to make it work. Amending the budget under the charter is admittedly a hard thing to do. In fact, if council does not, the charter provides that if council does not approve the budget 15 days before the end of the fiscal year, the budget that the mayor has initially proposed shall be adopted. Nothing can be extended forever, I guess is my point, particularly when it comes to the budget.
Thank you. I thought there was a deadline.
One capacity or the other. I've been around since 2001 in attendance and budget hearing. Right. It's very hard to amend the budget. I mean, I actually, when I was on council a time or two, tried to and never received more than 3 votes. And it failed then and there. I mean, I guess, if any other questions, I mean, Councilmember Parker can discuss things now, or she can wait until Tuesday.
Mr. Frost, would there first be a motion to make amendments?
Well, if you look at Robert's Rules of Order, the first thing you should do is to place the matter on the floor. And that is first with be a motion to approve, a second, and then it could be a motion to amend or a motion to postpone.
Okay. So basically, I think what we're hearing, Mr. Frost, is that this should come up at the meeting on Tuesday. And with the motion, there can be discussion.
It can, or if anyone wants to bring something up right now and take a straw poll vote, I mean, you might find out, I mean, go back to my idea of moving $100,000 around. If there's a straw poll and 8 people support that, that's got pretty good chance passing on Tuesday night. However, on the other hand, if you all don't like, or members of council don't like my idea, that might end it where there wouldn't be a need for discussion on Tuesday night.
I do not have any proposals to bring forward at this time. I need to digest everything we've heard over the last couple of days and, make sure I have a good understanding of everything.
Okay. Thank you, Councilmember Parker. With that said, I don't think we'll have further dialogue today, but I think it would be appropriate if Councilmember Parker or any other council member would like to call for that question on Tuesday, it would be more appropriate then for that discussion. But we appreciate your guidance, Mr. Frost. Okay. Any other questions, comments? Okay, if not, everyone thank you again for your attention and your attendance the last 2 days. I hope you have a relaxing rest of your day and a great weekend. Everyone take care. Goodbye.
Bye.